Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome to the final edition of It's Thin Lizzy Thursday. Over the past 13 weeks, I have discussed Thin Lizzy's 12 studio albums and also did an episode on their official live albums from Phil Lynnett's Lifetime, Live and Dangerous, and Life Live, as well as some of the posthumous live albums that have been released after Phil's passing. Today, I will review Thin Lizzy's 12 studio albums from my least favorite to my favorite. And I would like to thank all of you who have been watching the series for all of your knowledgeable, passionate, and respectful feedback throughout, whether it was with me or with other people who have been commenting. I think it really brought a lot to the series and it gave me even more motivation to do this catalog, which I love so much. So let's get started. Just to let you know, the lowest I would rank any of these albums, which would be the first one I talk about here, would be a 5. I would give albums 7 through 1, 8.5 to a 10. That's how highly I think of this catalog. 5 you might think is too low. My favorite band is Little Feat. I would give 2 of their albums below a 5. The Allman Brothers Band, I like nearly as much as Little Feat. I would give 3 of their albums below a 5. So I think quite highly of this catalog. My number 12, which I give a 5 out of 10, is Shades of a Blue Orphanage. Now, this is with the original trio of Phil Lynott, Brian Downey, and Eric Bell. And I thought this was a step back from their debut. Their debut album was very well recorded. It was very Irish sounding, and a lot of songs were really good. Maybe not great. Here they're try trying to do too many different things, and I don't think a lot of them work. What do I like on the album? I like Buffalo Gal a lot. I like Brought Down a lot. That's probably my favorite song on the proper studio album. Call the Police I like a lot. Some of the other songs, like the opening track, The Rise and Dear Demise of the Funky Nomadic Tribes, I think is disjointed. Same thing with Shades of a Blue Orphanage. I never liked I Don't Want to Forget How to Jive. If you go and have look at the remastered and expanded version, you have a track on here called Black Boys on the Corner. I think this is better than anything else on the original studio album. I think it should have been on this album proper. But this is my number 12, Shades of a Blue Orphanage from 1972. Number 11 is their 11th studio album, Renegade from 1981. Now, this would feature Scott Gorham and Snowy White on guitars. And we had Darren Wharton here on keyboards, joining Phil Lynott and Brian Downey. This, as I would say about the last 3 studio albums they did, starts out hot and then it goes out with a whimper. I love Angel of Death. I believe it's one of their 10 best songs. 10 are one of my 10 favorites. Renegade is really close. Hollywood Down Your Luck is an excellent single. I love Pressure Will Blow. Most of the second half I don't like. I like Fats because it's a little different and it's interesting. Rest of the album, not too fond of. It's too reined in. It's too glossy. It took a lot of power away from the band, in my opinion. This is my number 11, Renegade from 1981. Number 10 would be their 10th studio album and would be the first to feature Snowy White on guitar, 1980s Chinatown. Now, just as I said about Renegade, starts out strong. I don't think the opener, We Will Be Strong, is that great, but the title track after it, I think, is Scorcher. Sweetheart, Sugar Blues are very good. Killer on the Loose is excellent. I never liked Having a Good Time. Genocide is good. Didn't I? It's a pretty decent ballad. They've done some better ones, but it's good. Hey You, I don't think ends the album very well. So, yeah, this is good. There's a lot to like on it, but it's not one of my favorites. My number 10, Chinatown from 1980. My number 9 is Thin Lizzy's self-titled debut from 1971. This is recorded very well. You can really hear the space between the instruments. Phil Lynnett's voice has never been stronger than it was on the debut. He was trying some different things on here. His songwriting was decent at this point. It really developed as time went on. Most Irish sounding album. A lot of Van Morrison on this album. Honesty is no excuse. Very Van Morrison, and I love it. Diddy Levine is very good. Look What the Wind Blew In, I think, is excellent. I think it's their first great track, although a lot of longtime fans would pick a different one. Return of Farmer's Son, I like. Clifton Grange Hotel, Remembering Part 1, I like, but it takes a while to get going. So there's a lot I like on this album. There's only a couple songs I really love. And if you get the remastered and expanded version, there's a track on here called Things Ain't Working Out Down at the Farm. I think you put that on the proper studio album. It was originally on the New Day EP. If you put that on the original studio album, I think it would have brought it up a little bit. But as it is, this is my number 9, Thin Lizzy's self-titled debut from 1971. Number 8, I know this is a favorite of a lot of you who've been watching this series. And it's Thunder and Lightning, their last album from 1983. On this album, you would have John Sykes replace Snowy White in the guitar spot right beside Scott Gorham. John Sykes gave them a ball of energy, although they did lose their unison guitar sound, and that's one of the reasons I wouldn't rank this as high as a lot of people would. But there are a lot of good songs on here. The title track kills. This Is the One is great. The Sun Goes Down is very tranquil and mellow, but Thin Lizzy do mellow awfully well, and I'll go into that a little further later. I love Holy War. I think Cold Sweat is a killer track. Very straight ahead and just knocked your socks off. Second half of the album, outside of Bad Habits, I'm not a fan of the songwriting. I do like the performances. The songwriting I don't think is quite up to Phil's usual standards. So my number 8 is Thunder and Lightning from 1983. Now, as I've said on this series a few times, Thin Lizzy had a 7-album run from 73 to 79. Tough to beat. I would put it up against any classic hard rock or heavy metal or rock band or artist from the 70s. I put it up side by side against all the great ones and above a lot of them as well. So, my number 7 is Vagabonds of the Western World from 1973. This is the last album to have the original trio of Phil, Brian Downey, and Eric Bell. And I think they were really getting their sound down here, even though the unison guitars would come on the next album. Phil's songwriting got very strong on here. I love Hero and the Madman. The Rocker is considered by many the first great Thin Lizzy song. Excellent track. The title track kills. Little Girl in Bloom is a wonderful ballad. Gonna Creep Up on You. Excellent. Song for While I'm Away is very good. Everything on here I think is very, very good. A couple songs are great. This is my number 7, Vagabonds of the Western World from 1973. Number 6, from 1977, Bad Reputation. Now here, this album's pretty strong all the way through, and that's telling you how much if I'm saying that about the number 6, you can imagine how I feel about the next 5. Soldier of Fortune's excellent opener. Bad Reputation destroys. Opium Trail destroys. Southbound, fantastic melodic rocker. Those unison guitars ring on this. They sing. Excellent. Dance in the Moonlight. This is where Thin Lizzy would occasionally go R&B, and it works like a charm. I love Downtown Sundown, another great ballad. When they go mellow, there's few who are finer than Thin Lizzy. Dear Lord is a wonderful closer. Only thing that hurts me a little bit on this album, I think some of the songs weren't recorded as well as far as Phil's vocals would go. And Brian Robertson, who is part of the classic Thin Lizzy lineup, he only played on 3 tracks on this album, and I think that hurts it a little bit. But this is my number 6, Bad Reputation of 1977. Number 5 is Fighting from 1975. This album, to me, I always thought the first side destroyed. The second side was okay. Over the years, the second side has really grown on me. But the first side, Rosalie, they make Bob Seger's song their own. For Those Who Love to Live is excellent. Suicide, Wicked, Wild One. Oh my gosh, those unison guitars sound wonderful. Fighting My Way Back is killer. Second side, King's Revenge or King's Vengeance. It's written as King's Revenge on my CD. Is awesome. Spirit Slips Away is more mellow, but it's awesome. Silver Dollar, Freedom Song. Very well written, very well sung by Phil. Ballad of a Hard Man. It's one of the heaviest songs they've ever done. My number 5 is Fighting from 1975. Number 4 is Black Rose, a Rock Legend from 1979. Now, on here, you have Gary Moore in his only album as a full-time member, stand beside Scott Gorham after Brian Robertson left. This would probably be considered the last great Thin Lizzy album by a lot of people. Although a lot of you would say Thunder and Lightning. I respect that. Do Anything You Want To is a killer opener. Toughest Street in Town rocks like hell. One of their more underrated tracks, as some of you have talked about in the comments. Waiting for an Alibi, a fantastic single. Sarah, their second song called Sarah. First one would have been from Shades of a Blue Orphanage. I think this song is the superior of those two. Got to Give It Up is a very strong track. Rouge and Dub Black Rose, the epic that ends the album that has a lot of traditional Irish songs in it, as well as a phenomenal guitar solo from Gary Moore. Excellent. Perhaps their best closer. I mean, you can argue a few of their songs were as number 1 closer for them, but Black Rose, a Rock Legend from 1979 is my number 4. All right, number 3 is Jailbreak from 1976. Definitely their most anthemic album. You could sing along with nearly all of these songs, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a pop album or a sellout or anything like that. There's a lot of songs on here that destroy. They're heavy. Like Warriors, like Emerald, another fantastic closer. Boys Are Back in Town, of course, was their big worldwide hit, their biggest hit in the United States. Jailbreak, the title song, is probably their second most famous song here in the States, and Cowboy Song might be their fourth. The third would probably be Whiskey in a Jar at this point. But the deep cuts kill on here. Angel from the Coast is excellent. Romeo and the Lonely Girl is very good. Fight or Fall, another fantastic ballad. Love their ballads so much. Running Back was originally going to be the first single off this. Great song, very R&B. They made a great choice in choosing Boys Are Back in Town instead. I think that was the difference in their career. Choosing that Boys Are Back in Town over Running Back as the single. I don't know if they would have had the success they had with Running Back as the single. But anyway, this is a lot of fans' number 1. You can't argue that. 5 out of 5 stars on All Music. And they don't give too many 5-star albums. Number three, Jailbreak from 1976. And yes, I would give it a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10 as well. Now, my number two is Nightlife from 1974. Why do I love this album? Because it's so mellow, but Thin Lizzy do mellow like nobody else in hard rock. There's only two songs on here that really rock. It's Only Money and Sha La La, which are later became a showcase for Brian Downey's drum solo in their live shows. Philomena with the unison guitars, that doesn't really rock that hard. Rest of this album, there's a lot of acoustic guitars. Uh, Phil's bass is really heavy in the mix. His vocals very sensual on here. I love She Knows. I love Showdown. Still in Love with You is fantastic. Best known for Gary Moore's first guitar solo in Thin Lizzy, and that's his only contribution to the album. I love Dear Heart. I think that is a very elegant closer. Nightlife, the title track. Well, not really the title track, but because they spell it differently, is excellent. I also like Frankie Carroll, that piano ballad. I mean, it's an outlier, just like Banshee, which sounds like a something out of a Western, but I love it. It's the way the songs really hit you. And this has been my number one at some times in my life, but now it's my number two. Nightlife, 1974. My number one is not because it's also my name. It's Johnny the Fox from 1976. Their second album from 1976, After Jailbreak. That's how much this band was on fire in 1976. This is how much Bill Lynnett's songwriting had blossomed by 1976. All the band members, Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson, Brian Downey, Phil Lynott, at their best on here. This was loosely based on a concept album, and then eventually they went away from the concept, but you got three great ballads in here, or power ballads, and Borderline, Old Flame, and Sweet Marie. I think Sweet Marie is the best ballad they ever did. Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Weed. They go straight up funk and is killer. Don't Believe a Word, short and sweet, 2 minutes and 18 seconds, kicks your ass and gets out. It was a single. It's probably too heavy to be a single, but it just cuts and it kills, especially more than the blues version that Gary Moore would put out. Fool's Gold, another one of my favorite songs by Thin Lizzy, is on this album. And I love the opener, Johnny, with the horns in it, and Rocky just kicks ass. Excellent guitar lines in that song. And Boogie Woogie Dance, another killer closer. Now, these top three or four, Black Rose was my number one at one point too. Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, these could change," and they have changed for me. But today, December 31, 2024, Johnny the Fox is my number one favorite Thin Lizzy album. Just to let y'all know, I did do a show on their live albums. Live and Dangerous is wonderful, 10 out of 10. Life Live, very underrated, great performances on it, 8.5 out of 10. What do you think of this series? What do you think of Thin Lizzy's catalog? How would you rank these albums? How would you rank the early albums with Eric Bell? I'd love to hear your comments on that. What is your favorite era of Thin Lizzy? Do you think Phil Lynott is one of our most underrated vocalists and songwriters? How about Brian Downey? Chops nearly on, maybe you could say he's on the level of a Neil Peart or a Carl Palmer, but we don't hear as much about him. and all the guitar players in this band. Scott Gorham, always holding it down, no matter who is standing next to him. Always shining, always standing out, even though he was always trying to be a team player, trying to compliment the other guy. Who are your favorite guitarists in the band? What do you think of Darren Wharton's contributions to the band? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching the series. Also, thank you all for answering my poll in the community portion of the chat. Not a series, because you voted for a show on on the Black Star Riders studio albums. All 5 of them are right here. In the next couple of weeks or so, I will do a show on the 5 studio albums and how I rank them from my least favorite to favorite. I do like them all, but that show should be coming up shortly. As you watch this, I will have my favorite albums, my 10 favorite albums from 2024 out here on the Music Nut program. Thank you all so much for watching the series and for all of your great comments throughout. Happy New Year to you, your families, and your communities. Do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.